for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Tuesday, July 22nd. Thanks for watching on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll give a shout out to our sponsors and our partners as the show goes on. Without further ado, I bring Brian Wilde from Global TV Montreal to talk Montreal Canadiens. We take a look at their depth chart, even though it is the third week of July, and we see who we think belongs there and probably who we think is not going to be there by the time the puck drops on opening night. Speaking of which, Brian, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Very, very well. I wanted to bring up the schedule yesterday with Eric, and when the show was over, I realized I talked about bringing up the schedule, and I didn't bring it up. So there's a few things on the agenda before the regular season starts and even before the preseason. One is the prospects and the prospects challenge, or let's bring it up. It's the prospect showdown. See the brightest young stars in action of the Canadiens, the Ottawa Senators, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Winnipeg Jets. That's going to be September 13 and 14, and it's going to take place at the Bell Center. So now let's take a look at the schedule. And for the month of September, preseason games as they host Pittsburgh on the 22nd. They host Philly on the 23rd. A couple nights later, they host Toronto on the 25th. A couple of nights after that, they're in Toronto. And a couple of nights after that, they're in Ottawa. Let's bring the schedule back to October now, or to October, where they have a preseason game versus the Ottawa Senators. And the way they did a year ago, the Montreal Canadiens will open up their regular season by facing the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the only difference being that they will visit the Leafs this year because they hosted the Leafs last year. And like last year's schedule, where the Canadiens traveled to Boston after game one to play the Bruins in Boston for game two games and 2 nights, the Canadiens again will start their season with 2 games and 2 nights. But once again, the difference being is both games are on the road. They're going to be in Detroit, and then they're going to be in Chicago a couple nights after that, 3 games and 4 nights. Brian, I don't have the whole schedule here, but it's a very, very tough schedule. Because of the Olympic break, there's only 4 games in the month of February. That goes for all teams. The Canadiens, I believe, if I read correctly, will lead the league in back-to-back games, having 17 of them. Mm-hmm. That's a tough schedule, Brian.
Yeah, no favors. No favors at all for the Canadiens again, and some things remain the same. They have the Florida break in December as well at Christmas, making sure that Panthers get some good crowds for a change there in Tampa, that visit as well. Last year, though, was really brutal, not in terms of back-to-back, but in terms of excess traveling, because they would go on a road trip all the way out west, only do 2 games, come back east, then go all the way out west again for 2 more games instead of doing all 4 games on one trip. So they put on a lot of miles last year, and I think they're a little lighter on the miles this year, so they do benefit a bit there. The back-to-backs, if you don't have another one, I don't think back-to-backs are brutal. I think what's brutal, Tony, is the 3 and 4.
And the 4 and 6s. And the 4 and 6, correct.
Exactly, and the 5 and 7s. If you go back to back, but then have 2 nights off before that third one, it doesn't have to be so bad. These players can do back to back. It's when it accumulates, like it did late last January into February in the break, when there was a team clearly falling apart and needed that 4-nation showdown break that they got, that they rejuvenated themselves. That's the only thing that scares you. You look at that start, though, Tony, absolutely. 3 and 4 right off the hop, all all 3 road games. It's tough when you start on the road, of course, because everybody's really pumped up to do well in their first home game. And that's what they face there. So it's immediately a test for the Canadiens to show what type of hockey team they have. Last year against Chicago, remember when they visited the United Center, they had put in a terrible game that night against the Blackhawks. So they'll have something to prove there. They compete really nicely in Detroit, I found over the last couple of years. I expect a really good effort there. And I think they're going to beat the Maple Leafs on opening night.
Wow. Okay. Geez, beat the Maple Leafs on opening night. We'll see what happens. You know what?
Well, think about where they are, the Maple Leafs. I mean, that's a team I think that's going to be scrambling a little bit off the hop. They're going to find that they have a hole with Mitch Marner going to Vegas. And right away, they're going to find that they might say themselves, well, who's going to produce on this line here and who's going to back up where Marner's gone? And I think off the hop, Toronto's going to have a little tough start in October. They'll figure it out, but I don't think they're going to have a good October, the Maple Leafs.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things last year, the Canadiens didn't have a very good month of October. They didn't have a very good month of November. As you remember, especially in October, the Canadiens were blown out on several nights in November too. It was not a very good start, but it wasn't a very good preseason either, right? I think it's going to be important to get off to a good preseason. I mean, some of the games were getting tough and they were getting physical. They were getting a little bit nasty. At one point, if you recall, Marty St. Louis was scared of some of his players. Or he was worried about some of his players getting injured and that he didn't even want to play them in the preseason, right? And so it was by not playing them, you're not developing chemistry with the players and the other players on the team. And then the season starts and the Canadiens looked in the month of October like a team that did not have a lot of chemistry going in. They looked like a team that didn't have a great preseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you look at the new CBA, it's nice that the preseason is a little bit shorter and they've added 2 games to the regular season. You'd have to look really hard to find somebody that doesn't think the preseason is too long and that they all worry about being injured in the preseason as well. I mean, you're just trying to get your shape. And once you have it, you don't want to play anymore. So it's a fine line between the fact that you maybe don't get prepared as well as you could because you don't want to have your players being targeted for injuries early in the campaign. But at the same time, you have to get off to a good start. So it's a juggling act for every coach to figure out how to have his team ready on opening night.
Today's topic, we're going to take a look at the Montreal Canadiens depth chart as it stands in the 3rd week of July. And we're going to once again talk about a player or two that we don't see being there when the season starts, or maybe shouldn't be there. We'll discuss it. But first and foremost, one of our partners is Playground. 3 tasty reasons to visit the Rail. Mondays as of 4 p.m. Dive into 2 lobster tails for just $22 served with rice, veggies, garlic butter, and a warm biscuit. Thursdays from 4 p.m. Sink your teeth into their Surf and Turf special, an 8-ounce New York strip, with shrimp, fries, and pepper sauce for only $19. Fridays from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Enjoy any burger, sandwich, pizza, or made for just $7. Certain conditions apply. All you need is a valid Playground player's card, and it's free. Deals this good are worth the trip only at the Rail inside the Playground complex. Visit playground.ca for details. Also, brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the summer with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. Brian, before we get to the topic, I want to let you know that I saw this on social media. A couple of people were hanging out at Brassard today, and they did good to do so because on the ice was Nick Suzuki, Patrik Laine, Ivan Demidov, Jaden Struble, Arbor Jackeye. I think I'm missing somebody.
Patrik Laine.
And Patrik Laine, of course, yes. And so they were on the ice earlier today. And, there was a shootout challenge at the end. It's Ivan Demidov, who, based on what I read, walked away with the honors. Patrik Laine was practicing that one-timer. Guess who was dishing him the puck, Brian? It's Nick Suzuki. So let's take a look at that depth chart. Okay. Suzuki with Slavkovsky on his right and Caulfield on his left. Kirby Dach is in between Ivan Demidov and Patrik Laine. Newhook with Josh Anderson and Zack Bolduc. And Jake Evans with Oliver Kapanen and Brendan Gallagher. Now, I don't see Joe Veleno on this depth chart. Yesterday, with Eric Engels joining me, Eric said he thinks it's going to come down to be one of the 12 regulars. He thinks Samuel Blais is going to be number 13, but he thinks number 12 is either going to be Kapanen or Veleno. And I think he was saying that he's giving the edge to Kapanen. He sees Veleno in the American Hockey League? I'd love to get your take.
I'm going to switch that from what Eric believes. I think that Kapanen could use a little more seasoning in the American Hockey League. And also, I think from what we've seen in the playoffs, I'm really starting to get the feeling that Hugo believes that you have to have in your back six forwards a lot of toughness, a lot of wear down the opposition, make sure that they're wearing some ice packs after the game. And the Canadiens through the years have been a non-ice pack team, and I really think that the organization wants that changed. And I think if Kapanen is going to find a full-time job in the National Hockey League, he's going to have to play with a little bit more gumption and a little bit more edge. I found that that was his weakness. He understands the game beautifully, does Kapanen. He's really smart away from the puck. He's got a real centerman's mentality away from the puck. But at the same time, if you don't play with an edge, and you don't play with that toughness, then you have to be a top six forward. And I don't think he has the offensive skill to be a top six forward. So I have a hard time imagining where Kapanen fits in an NHL roster right now, unless he develops his offensive skill set, which I did not see at the end of last season. And if he gets more comfortable, which would happen in Laval, then maybe he comes back and he has a chance to fill a higher role up the roster. But right now, if he's a low role on the roster, then he won't get chosen because he doesn't have that edge. So I'm going to put Veleno over Kapanen on the fourth line there this year.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they slot Alex Newhook in this lineup, whether or not Alex Newhook is going to be a centerman or he's going to be a winger. Because in Nick Suzuki, you have a right-handed shot. In Kirby Dach, you have a right-handed shot. In Alex Newhook, you have a left-handed shot. In Joe Veleno, you have a left-handed shot. And in Oliver Kapanen, you have a right-handed shot. Let's just say Newhook is a centerman. So if you would have Newhook, who's a left-handed shot, and then you'd have Kapanen, Suzuki, and Dach, who are three righties. Yeah. Let's just say you have Suzuki and Dach, and you have and I haven't even talked about Jake Evans yet. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's say you have Suzuki, Dach, two righties. You have Joe Veleno, who's a lefty, and then you have Jake Evans, who of course is a righty. Then it's three righties and a lefty. Like I think in an ideal world, you'd love to have two rights and two lefts.
Yeah,
that's what I think. Now, on the topic of, I like Kapanen. I do. I'm trying to think of a Canadiens team that made the playoffs last year that obviously is going to be faced with a certain pressure this year and a certain adversity because they're expected to get in, even though they've said that if they don't, it's not the end of the world. They're expected to get in, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Are they going to give a spot right away to 21-year-old Kapanen with 18 NHL games under his belt over 25-year-old Veleno with 306 NHL games in the regular season under his belt? The last time he played a game in the American Hockey League was about 3.5 years ago. They just signed him to come home, hometown boy, to play in front of family and friends. And once again, maybe there is no decision, Brian. And maybe it plays itself at camp. And we'll see. But if I have to answer today on the 22nd of July, I see Veleno getting an opportunity before Kapanen.
Can I ask you a question? I know you're on your laptop and you can access it. What has Veleno through the course of his career done in the face-off circle?
I'd have to take a look at well, this past year was 46% with over 400 draws. Mm-hmm. Let me see if I can bring it up to you.
Because when we talk about left versus right and everything like that, I mean, the guy they lost was Dvorak, who was 58% in the face-off circle, far and away their best guy in the face-off circle. So that's the part that's gone, right, is Christian Dvorak. So when you fill it and you say he's won
46.5% of face-offs in his NHL career.
Right. So he's not great either. So when we talk two right, two left, we're talking about that because we're surmising overall that you want someone to go out and be from both sides of the ice, whether it's in the left dot or the right dot, a guy that can, put in a nice percentage in the dot that it happens to be, so you can win that face-off and win the game. But I mean, if they're all lousy at it, because we know Doc's in the 30s, right?
Yeah.
Newhook's not great either. Veleno we see at 46. The best face-off guy is Nick Suzuki, and that's not exactly been, the best part of his career either. So, it's a little bit of an issue with the team that they find not only a centerman. We all know that the look at the 2C was what they wanted to acquire this year, but have been unable to do that because everyone in the league needs a 2C apparently. Except a couple of the teams, of course. You can't exaggerate. People will correct you for anything. But that's the hole they have to fill. They didn't fill it. The face-off hole is the one they have to fill. They didn't fill it.
Yeah.
I just believe overall, when you look at your back six, they need to bring 0-0 on the score line and toughness at the end of the day. And so that's why I favor Veleno. And Kapanen can learn in the American Hockey League still. I watched the Laval games in the playoffs. I did not think he shone, to be honest. It looks like he could still use a little bit more hockey down there.
I think so too. But once again, we'll have a much better idea in camp. Jake Evans, his face-off percentage. His first year was 51.8 with the Canadiens. Mm-hmm. Next year was 50.1. Next year was 49.8. Next year was 52. The year after that was 52.2. The year after that was 52.9. So look, there's only 1 year that he's under 50%. He's
right, and he has the footprint.
So this is a player who I would imagine if I worked out this average, looking at about 51% in the faceoff circle. So about 4.5 to 5 percentage points better than Joe Veleno.
And I would say that he's probably your second choice when you're late in the game up by one. Suzuki's your number one choice, of course, but if you're trying to massage the end of that contest and you got an important draw, I think Jake Evans is the second guy over the boards if Nick is tired.
Yeah, I think so. And, while we're doing this exercise and I have the laptop here, why don't I just bring up Nick Suzuki? Because Nick Suzuki, this is going to be a huge year for him. I'm going to tell you why. If he wants to make Team Canada going to the Olympics, he's going to have to try his very best to get that face-off average up. Because I think it's one of the things that let him down. Suzuki, by the way, Brian, is 48.7% of the faceoffs in his NHL career. So statistically, Evans goes into the season as the best and the highest.
Yeah.
Now, there's probably another argument that Evans probably has taken most of his faceoffs versus fourth and third liners, and Suzuki has probably taken most of his faceoffs versus first and second liners, and therefore maybe Suzuki's percentage is probably more impressive.
Right, and that's why Dvorak's percentage was really impressive because, there were a lot of times that he was up against either the first or second line in a defensive footprint, trying to make sure that they stayed ahead of the game when they were leading by one. So I think Dvorak was, not a guy that I loved, obviously, over the course of his career with Montreal. None of that ever worked out, from Kotkaniemi to his replacement to where we are now. It's been the big hole from start to finish on drafting Jesperi third overall. And the problem still remains and is probably augmented right now, Tony, because as you've just detailed front to back, there's really no strong Dvorak type face-off man. And that can make a difference up by one late in the game.
All right. Another special thanks to one of our partners, which is Betway. Go all the way with Betway. Get a free bet up to $200. First bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of older. And please play responsibly. Also, a shout out to Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, which I talked to you about, and a shout out to Energy Transportation Group. They are a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. They're a top fleet employer in Canada, and we thank them very much for their support. All right, okay. Let's get to the depth chart now. Why don't we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back again. Suzuki with Slav and Caulfield, Doc with Demidov and Laine, Newhook with Anderson and Bolduc, and Jake Evans with Kapanen and Brendan Gallagher. We brought it up before. We're bringing it up again. I want to keep it here for about 30 seconds or so. I believe that Veleno will be there before Kapanen. You believe that Veleno will be there before Kapanen. We'll see what happens. Other than that, there are a bunch of people who believe that Bolduc will end up playing on the same line as Demidov. Well, if Bolduc plays on the same line as Demidov, and Bolduc's not going to play center, and Demidov's not going to play center, then Patrik Laine is not on that line. And I think Eric mentioned yesterday that you know, he sees Bolduc. He sees Patrik Laine, pardon me, on a line with maybe Alex Newhook. He doesn't see Patrik Laine on that line with Kirby Dach and Ivan Demidov. Do you?
I totally agree with Eric on that one. I think Zack Bolduc is going to play on the second line, and I think part of the reason is the plus-minus of the other players. Kirby Dach, as you know, was a league worst when he got injured, -29, and Patrik Laine finished -14. And Ivan Demidov has never been in the National Hockey League. And when you looked at the brief games he got to in the regular season and the playoff series, there was the odd defensive mistake. And as far as his understanding of the defensive game, it was his only weakness. So that line needs the +20 that Zack Bolduc brings from the St. Louis Blues. And so I just think it's an absolute no-brainer that Bolduc, with his 19 goals and more points than Patrik Laine and a much more complete hockey player, because I don't think Patrik Laine is actually a very good 5-on-5 hockey player. I think it's an absolute no-brainer, and I'd be absolutely shocked if Zack Bolduc was not on the second line of that hockey team to give that a much better footprint with Kirby Dach's weak minus and Evan Demidov's lack of experience. I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Your second line winger is Zack Bolduc.
Pierre Maguire said something last week here on the Sick Podcast. He said, Laine doesn't have the qualities of a fourth line player.
Yes, absolutely.
Laine doesn't have the qualities of a third line player. If Patrik Laine is not on your second line, he's not helping you that much. So I think about that. And I say to that statement, I agree with that statement. However, I want to add something. You know what I think this all comes down to? I think it all comes down to whatever kind of shape Patrik Laine is going to be in. Patrik Laine was not in great shape last year. When he arrived, remember, he was taking like 25-second shifts. He was off the ice. He was huffing and puffing, and he looked like his cardio was really setting him back. Of course, he suffered that knee injury in preseason. He was coming off a shortened season the year before. His cardio was a step behind. His pace was a step behind. The energy, the endurance, the stamina, all of that stuff. Brian, if Patrik Laine shows up to camp in shape, even though for the most part, I get what you're saying, and he's not as defensively responsible a player, I think they're going to put him in that position to succeed, because if Laine scores goals, he's helping the Montreal Canadiens the best way he can. If Laine scores goals, and even if he's not going to be in the plans because he's in the final year of his contract, it's in their best interest to try and trade him when his value is at the highest. Like, would you take a Patrik Laine going into the final year of his contract and put him on a third line?
Well, basically what you're asking me is, are they investing in him? And you sound to me like you think they're going to invest in him.
I think they're going to give it a try, but it's going to be up to him. If he shows up to camp in shape and ready to go, they'll give him that opportunity. If he shows up to camp in terrible shape, they'll bury him on the third and fourth lines.
I think he's going to show up in camp to shape. Like today, he was on the ice. It's July 22nd.
Yeah.
And he was on the ice. This is a guy who I think is saying to everybody he wants to play hockey. So I don't think this, people might say, based on the playoffs last year, but he hurt his hand. So I don't think you can evaluate it from that point of view if you didn't think he had a great playoff. I think it's really unfair to him. However, I didn't think at the end of the season before he got injured that he was processing the game at a quick pace, 5-on-5 and pushing the play up the ice very well either. So it's moreover like, how much are they going to invest in him? Because for me, I see them really wanting to invest in Bolduc, right? I mean, you just traded for him. He's your guy. He's got a contract. He's got years in front of him as far as RFA and then unrestricted free agent. They might, if he has a nice season, give him an offer of a long-term deal. You know what I mean? He's had like one season totally of pro hockey under his belt. He was outstanding. He's defensively aware. He's a great two-way player. I think he is the guy they're going to want to invest in. And I think that Laine might be the guy they just kind of, I don't want to say throw away, but don't invest in to the same degree. But you make a great point. And also what Pierre said, as a third and fourth, he's not that valuable.
But get ready. I'm going to throw something crazy out there now, okay?
Okay.
I love Ivan Demidov, okay?
Yeah.
There's 60 minutes in the game. I want to see him play 75, okay? So let's just get that out of the way, all right? Okay.
That's sort of your math for how he's showering.
But I want to throw something out there. Doc, Bolduc,
yeah,
and Laine have something in common. Their contract's up at the end of the year.
Yeah, but you really can't, like.
So this is 3 players, and once again, Doc. Yeah. We talk about Patrik Laine. Patrik Laine, of course, will be an unrestricted free agent. Okay,
right. So we want to do something this year.
Doc and Bolduc will be restricted free agents. All right. So you know what? If they have a good year, the Canadiens do not have to break the bank in terms of the next contracts on these players. But when you put 3 players together whose contract are going to be up at the end of the year, with all of them willing to prove something, it could make for a very, very motivated line. And we just found the name, right? The contract line. So we don't have to look very hard for.
I just have a hard time, Tony, really believing that they're going to invest in him. Also, in terms, I mean, you brought up the contract. That's one, and then that's a big motivation for Laine to have a great year in his contract year. But I mean, you look at, like, he had 20 goals, right? But for the most part, it was just being on the left side in the power play, and he's going to be supplanted there too, because Demidov is going to get that first power play. So now Laine is not only fighting to be on one of the first 2 lines, the second line, obviously. Now he's fighting for not the last 35, 40 seconds of a power play. So, I mean, it is all shaping up for him to really, really have to prove himself to even get a fair to good chance, because they're going to want to make the Bolduc trade look good. They're going to make the Demidov draft look good, and these 2 players are already talented in themselves, and they're going to make themselves look good. I just find this is going to be a very tricky year for Patrik Laine to make himself look like a very valuable addition of the team. Much more than last year when he was the go-to guy in the power play for sure, because Demidov wasn't there yet. So, and there was no one to fill that second line.
Don't forget, if you want to tread carefully, or, take your time with a guy like Demidov, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that Demidov could play the second line in the Canadiens. Okay, we'll get that out right of the way. But if you put him on the third line, it makes for some very, very favorable matchups for him to start his NHL career.
Oh, that's a good point. I like that point. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point.
You're not putting all the pressure on him. He doesn't have to go up against top 2 lines in the other team. He doesn't have to go up against the top 2 pairings. Right. You spot him. You put him on the third line. You got favorable matchups. You put him on the first wave of the power play if you want, and you spot him there. It could work out too.
Right. And also, let me add too, there's not really a lot to choose between the centers he'd be playing with. Right. Yeah. So is Demidov going to say, "Oh my God, I need to have Doc," as if Doc is so superior to Newhook? We don't even know right now which of the 2 might be better this year. So that increases the point that you're making in terms of not only matchups, but there's really not a lot of disparity between the second and third line centers.
So now let's bring up Patrik Laine's stats that you talked about, because they were actually pretty good. So here you have it. Patrik Laine in 52 games, 20 goals, 13 assists, 33 points. He was a -14. In 2 playoff games, he had 1 assist. Let's take a look at where he was.
Before you move on from that, when was the last time he was a plus player?
Patrik Laine was a plus player in Winnipeg, as you see in
2020, man.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Well, look, let's be honest. He's a blue line in player. That's what he is. He's
That's
a blue
it.
line.
That's it.
He's a blue line in player with a weapon of a shot on the power play. Patrik Laine is in that category of players that shoot the puck so hard and are so good at one-timing it that everyone on the ice knows exactly what's going to happen, and yet they can't stop it. Right. You're really good when that happens.
Can I ask a thought? I'm going to ask something that just popped into my head. And like when we talk about Patrik Laine and whether he's going to, even remain a Montreal Canadien for the full 82 games this season, one of the things you have to talk about, of course, is that shot you just did in the power play in the first unit. Needs to be the first minute 20 is where he needs to play, right? So what about this? What about Slafkovsky isn't one of the 5 on that first power play? Is that a possibility? So Laine can get that shot off.
I think it's a possibility. However, you know that every successful power play, or at least if it's not working, one of the things power plays tend to do is they try and simplify things. You need somebody at the net. You need somebody trying to tip pucks.
Yeah.
Like so if you put Demidov and you put Laine and you put Caulfield and you put Suzuki and you put Hudson all in the first wave of the power play, who's going to the front of the net?
I agree.
So I think it's a possibility that Slafkovsky's not there, but I think in the end he will be. I think what it's going to come down to is that it's either going to be Laine or Demidov on the first wave. I think that's the discussion that's going to be had.
Wow. So I disagree. I think that the discussion is going to be Laine or Slafkovsky on the first wave. I think Demidov is a lock for the first wave.
I don't think he's a lock.
He's so good.
Well, I know that. But you know what? I knew that Laine Hudson was really good too last year, but it took a month and a half for him to get on the first wave.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
To supplant Matheson.
There's kind of like
hierarchy.
It's a hierarchy. It's a pecking order.
And it's very important.
And we hate it, but it happens. It's a reality in the National Hockey League.
Tony, that's a very valid point. I think it's a strong point. We always, as fans and media too, really don't, I think we understand it, but we don't like it. But we know it exists and we know it's important. And that's why Hudson, even though it was clear to every single fan that he was the guy that should be there, it took a while for the hierarchy in the room to settle that out. And you're absolutely right. If Demidov gets, if he gets like given it right away without the hierarchy playing out, it may be something that doesn't sit well in the room. And sitting well in the room is really important. And Martin St. Louis, as a former player, knows that. Because
they have a very strong room. And it's almost like last year, Laine Hudson needed that, or they wanted Hudson to prove in the first month and a half, 2 months, to Mike Matheson.
That's it.
That he made the Canadiens power play better. And I think that Demidov is going to have to prove. And you know what? In due time, I'm sure that he will.
Yeah.
So, I'd like
and one thing in Demidov's favor, Tony, that I'd like to say here is and I think like when you win the hierarchy battle, one of the reasons that it happens is because in the room, all the players respect you. And what the players respect the most is work ethic. And now it's very clear. Anybody's been paying attention at all to Demidov's summer. The guy's a rink rat. Yes. Just like Laine Hudson.
Correct.
He wants to improve tremendously. He's out on the ice all of the time. He's out for the shootout right now. He's going to be in the prospect showcase in September. The guy's on the rink all the time. So he's going to gain the respect of his teammates very, very quickly, like Laine Hudson did. But you're right. It could take a month. It could take 6 weeks.
He and Hudson are related, I think, and they don't even know it. All right. Okay. So on that note, I think here's the question to be had. Laine, there's no doubt in your mind that he starts the season with the Canadiens, because someone said to me, I don't think Laine is a fit on that team. He doesn't fit into the culture. Now,
I don't agree with the culture part.
So I'm not in the locker room, so I don't know whether or not he fits in that locker room. I see him fitting on the team. One of the things that stood out last year, I thought, was when Laine was scoring goals and he was set up in Cole Caulfield's office, as you know, right at the top of that left face-off circle with that right-handed shot. Even though he occupied Caulfield's spot in his office, when Laine scored, Caulfield looked like he was happier for Laine than he was actually happy for himself. So,
yes,
like just as much as us members of the media or even fans marveled at when Laine would score those goals and pick those top corners and those rockets, and we would say, wow, I think the players were wowed themselves. So I don't know if he's a fit in that room, but I think he can be a fit on the ice. A big question, I think, though, is going to is that I think Martin St. Louis is going to be a less patient version of himself this year, or maybe not even less patient, maybe just a more demanding coach. And there's certain things that Laine does or doesn't do on the ice that I think Marty probably won't let go. So I think Laine will start the season with the Canadiens. That's not an easy contract to move, by the way, at $8.7 million.
Right.
I don't think he's a fit in the room. I think he could be a fit in the team. But if he's not at his best, he's not going to get the ice.
Exactly.
But you have him on the first wave of your power play instead of Slavkovsky?
I do not. I have Slavkovsky on the first wave. I think.
See, how is that going to sit with him? How's that going to sit with Laine not being part of the first wave on the power play?
Well, it won't sit well, of course, because he's a professional and he knows that's where he's supposed to be to find any success. But
yeah,
it's just. I mean, at the end of the playoffs, of course, we didn't really get to see what was in Martin St. Louis' mind because Laine was injured. So we saw how the season ended, but like Demidov was just so good on the power play. His vision was the
Canadiens' power play got better when they put Demidov in. Yeah,
you cannot deny him, Tony Demidov of the first power play. And you've just made an excellent point that you need a guy to stand in front of the net, and there is no guy to do it if it's not Slavkovsky. You have to have everybody in their seat for a good power play. It has to be an abundance of weapons, and one of them is a big body in front of the net, deflecting and screening.
I want to choose my words here, okay? And I'm going to say it so that it's clear now. On my power play, Demidov's on the first wave.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Demidov won't be on the first wave for the first month and a half of the season because we saw that last year with Hudson. That's all I'm saying. He'd be on my first wave and Laine wouldn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if Laine will be and Demidov won't be.
And there's the rub. The rub of this whole thing is that if Laine is not on the first wave, he gets the second 40 seconds. And if he's not in the top six because he's not a good defensive 5-on-5 player, and Bolduc is there instead because he is a great 5-on-5 player, suddenly Patrik Laine is an $8.7 million player on the third line with not much offense. Maybe likes his matchups a little better, I guess. Not processing the game very well 5-on-5 or quickly. He's on the second power play unit. So how does he find success? Now, you just mentioned that, like, would you trade him at 8.7? That's a really hard trade to find a taker. And I think that when they consider the management that he's only got 1 year left, they may look at this season as one where they want to promote Demidov, they want to promote Slavkovsky, they want to promote Bolduc, and those are the ones that are going to get the better opportunities to find success because I think they're actually going to be the better players. Like, I don't think it's like a punishment to Laine or a gift to the others. I think Bolduc is a better player than Patrik Laine overall. So I think Demidov is a better first unit guy than Laine. So that'll be the change.
But now
Slavkovsky is better in front of the net. So where does he fit in terms of better than the other guy? And this is what happens when your team improves.
So now, in ending, there's something we haven't talked about. We'll end with this, okay? Because the big debate is whether or not the Canadiens are a better team with or without Patrik Laine. The big debate is whether or not Patrik Laine should be on the first wave of the power play, or Demidov should be there, or somebody else should be there, or Laine shouldn't be there, whatever, all that stuff. The big debate is who plays with Laine, and the big debate is which line will Laine be on, okay?
Yeah.
There's something we haven't talked about. We'll end with this. For all the flaws and all the weaknesses that I saw, you saw, everybody saw last year in Laine's game. He's a blue line in player. If he doesn't score on the power play, he's not helping all that much, yada, 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 blah, 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 and all that stuff. He showed up to camp a step behind because he wasn't fully rehabilitated or at the top of his game shape. He got hurt in preseason. He came back, I think, in the 2nd of December. When he came back, his fitness was still not up to par, and it looked like he was laboring. 2 doctors recommended that he have season-ending surgery, which he passed up on and said, I'm going to wear a brace, I'm going to do physio and blah, 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 and I'm going to play. He never had a really good centerman the entire time that he was playing. Doc was laboring last year, struggling. Then he got hurt. Then he ended up playing with Newhook. He played with Jake Evans at one point. He tried everyone. So he didn't have the best centerman. He didn't come in the best shape. He got hurt. He didn't have the best fitness. He didn't have the best stamina. Played with a brace. New team, new system, new culture, this, that, everything. He scored 22 goals in 52 games. So as bad as some things seem or look, That was a pace of 32 goals in a full season, which would have made him the Canadiens' second leading goal scorer behind Cole Caulfield's 37. So I'll end it with this. Imagine he comes in shape. Imagine his knee is 100%. Imagine his fitness, his cardio, his endurance, his stamina is at 100% of his capabilities. And imagine he has Demidov to feed him the puck from the wing. And imagine if Kirby Dach comes back and rebounds and has a great season to set him up.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who was on pace to score 32 last year, in those circumstances, will probably score 40. So those 40 goals can make the difference between the Canadiens making the playoffs or not making the playoffs.
Yeah, but the only thing that I heard during all of that didn't mesh for me was the defensive footprint of the line. Like, Patrik Laine gets 40 goals when he has a centerman that is so good at two-way hockey that the game is played in the offensive zone, and that's where, being a blue line in player, he gets a lot of chances to shoot. Like, if Patrik Laine finishes the game with 7 shots, one of them went in the net. But if he plays the game in his own zone, because Kirby Dach is not a good two-way centerman, and Demidov doesn't know how to play NHL hockey yet defensively, then he finishes every game with 1 shot or 2 shots.
Don't forget something else. Okay. Laine likes to set up on the left side. He's a right-handed shot.
Right.
He's more comfortable with a righty passing him the puck.
Right.
So at that point, Dach is his centerman.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to change the Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky line, you wouldn't think that you're going to change it, considering that it had more goals 5v5 than any other line in the National Hockey League last year with all the possession time that they had.
Yeah.
Whether it's a second line or a third line or whichever way you want to number it, if Patrik Laine is on the Montreal Canadiens to start next season, it's got to be Patrick. It's got to be Kirby Dach passing him the puck.
Let me conclude with this.
On his line.
Let me conclude with this. If Patrik Laine does succeed and is the second line winger, because that line is working in terms of 5-on-5, and Kirby Dach is not minus 29 anymore, but +2 or +3, and Laine's on one side, and Demidov's so damn good that they just play hockey in the offensive zone, the Montreal Canadiens are a way better hockey team. If you get there.
I hear you. So once again, on the 3rd week of July, tell me who you see Patrik Laine playing with. Will he be there when the season starts?
Right. So that's a good point that you've asked that there, because in the end, what I'm basically saying is it's not a lack entirely of a faith in Laine that he can play good 5-on-5 hockey. It's kind of a lack of faith in the togetherness of the three that they can't. So it's kind of, if you get right down to it, I'm actually saying a little bit that I lack faith in Kirby Dach improving his minus 29. And I lack a little faith in Demidov being able to play a brand of hockey that doesn't require a good two-way center. You know what I mean? So I'm putting it all on Laine in the conversation. Yes. But Laine could find a giant amount of success if he played with Sidney Crosby, because the hockey would be played in the offensive zone, and he would get 7 shots, and he would get 40 goals. And Demidov would take advantage of the fact that Crosby will play a lot of hockey in the offensive zone, and he would get a chance to show what he is best at. If the players are doing if getting a chance to show what they're best at, then they're great.
So which Canadiens players, if the Suzuki line remains untouched, in your opinion, will best complement Laine's game with everything that we know and not what
they don't have one? That's the problem. They don't have one. The 2C has not been filled. You can't rely on Dach defensively yet. If he does what everyone hoped he would do, play a really good two-way brand of hockey 5-on-5, it's a game changer for the team. Everybody knows this, right? So if his knee comes in healthy and he's in good shape and is the player that seemed to be developing before the catastrophic knee injury, that's a game changer. But we haven't seen that footprint of good two-way hockey yet at the center position from Alex Newhook, and Jake Evans doesn't have the offensive footprint. So the same hole exists that causes the ripple effect down the line.
50 minutes went by like that. Brian, so good.
That's
and I think
us,
you and
Tony.
I are going to do it very, very often next week, the Sick Podcast. That is. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
All right. It's brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. It's brought to you in part by Playground. It's brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. It's brought to you in part by Betway. Leave us a 5-star review. It's our way of feeling the love on Apple. For Shane Gaumont at Master Control, thanks for watching, everyone. It's a Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.